there are so many hard things about this journey. However, just clinging to that hope and knowing that one day we will be on the other side of it, and just kind of continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And we dream about her bell ringing day all the time and can't wait to celebrate that, and her taking her last chemo and all of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Whitley Penn Talks, where we give you valuable insights to help you make confident, informed decisions and move your business forward. My name is Emily Landry, and today we are sitting down with Dr. Paul Bowman, a passionate co-chair of Leukemia Texas's board, and Ashley, a devoted mother whose child has been directly impacted by the organization's mission. Together, they're going to share powerful stories of hope, resilience, and transformational roles nonprofits play in our patients' lives and in the families' lives navigating an illness. So I'll get started with a question for Dr. Bowman. Dr. Bowman, you know I'm not a scientist. Could you get us started by defining what leukemia is?
In simple terms, leukemia is cancer of the blood. More specifically, cancer that arises in the bone marrow where blood cells originate before they begin to circulate to do their job. What happens is a transformation occurs such that cells in the bone marrow lose their normal capability of growing up and functioning in the role for which they were intended. In leukemia, the consequence of that process is that the bone marrow is taken over by the abnormal cells, which grow quickly and fail to grow up to a level of maturity. So over time, sometimes a very short time, sometimes a longer time, these cells crowd out the normal cells, and as a consequence, the individual begins to have symptoms from the bone marrow failing. And among those symptoms include pallor, weakness, fatigue from anemia, fevers because the white blood cells are abnormal and unable to fight off infection, and bleeding because the blood platelets drop, which increases the risk of even minor injury causing bleeding into the skin and other sites in the body. So leukemias really are not just one, but a group of blood cancers which can affect people of all ages, which makes leukemias rather different than the more common cancers that people are aware of. It can occur in infancy, does have a peak of frequency in young children, preschool age children, but throughout life into the elderly as well. The most common one that occurs in children is called ALL, acute lymphocytic leukemia or acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The second most common is called AML, acute myeloid leukemia. And the common thing there is the letter A, which stands for acute, which means that the disease process grows relatively quickly. Symptoms can be quite severe. And in the days before there was effective treatment, these were universally fatal within a few weeks or a few months. There's been tremendous progress in the treatment of leukemia, not only in children, but also in adults, but especially in children, dating back now over 50 years, with steady increase in the understanding and improvements in prognosis, so that now the hope, and it's a realistic hope, is that the majority of kids afflicted with leukemia can overcome and actually be cured of their disease. In adults, the prognosis in general is not quite as good, but there's been a great deal of progress there also. In adults, there are more often chronic forms of leukemia that grow more slowly and for which treatments sometimes don't need to be as aggressive as they are for younger patients. But there's a great deal of variability. But the common theme that we must have in managing children and adults with leukemia is hope, that we can control the disease, possibly make it disappear completely, and have the individual proceed to a much more normal and healthy life after completing their therapy. That's always the goal. My own inspiration for this really goes back to the days when I was a medical student, which is over 50 years ago. I had an exposure as a trainee to a young child with leukemia, just at a time when hope was beginning to really be realized through clinical research and publications of outcomes. And as a result, I got hooked and basically decided to pursue a career in the care of children with leukemia and cancers. This led me and my family to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, where I trained and had the honor and privilege to stay on as a faculty member and take care of many, many patients and conduct clinical research. And then in 1982, I had a very interesting phone call that brought us to Fort Worth, where we ended up moving. And we've lived here ever since, over 43 years now, with my career being based mainly from that time until my clinical retirement at Cook Children's, where I headed up programs to improve treatments for kids with leukemia, participate in national clinical research, and do our very best to make sure that we upheld the highest standard of care. I've been privileged during that time to witness tremendous strides in the outlook and hope for children, adolescents, and others with acute leukemia. It's been a thrilling ride. Along the way, we became exposed through one particular patient to Leukemia Texas. That patient and his family benefited from the generosity of Leukemia Texas, and we became supporters and volunteers back in 2007. In 2014, we were able to accomplish, my wife and I, something that we were very excited about, and that was to persuade the board of Leukemia Texas to move it from Dallas, where it had been originated in 2003, to Fort Worth, and it's been based in Fort Worth, our signature fundraising event now for the last 11 plus years. So now, in retirement for the last 4 years, my wife Lois and I have served recently as co-chairs of the board of Leukemia Texas, and are very pleased that we can have this continued opportunity to provide service and insight and hopefully some inspiration of our own to help give back to those that have inspired us over these many years and decades also.
I love that answer. And I've had the privilege of getting to go to last year's Beat Leukemia Ball and looking forward to the invitation for this upcoming year's ball. So, Ashley, you've been gracious enough to be willing to come on to talk about what I can't even begin to fathom as a difficult conversation, let alone life journey. So, would you mind sharing the beginning of your family's journey with leukemia?
Sure. About a month after our daughter's second birthday, we noticed that her mood had started to change, her energy levels, her uh, character. She's very big personality, silly, sassy, outgoing, and we started to see a lot of that start to fade, and um, started to notice some lingering cold symptoms. It seemed like she was kind of trying to kick something but couldn't, and we had brought her in to see her pediatrician. Her pediatrician wasn't there the first time. It was around the holidays. And so we saw a nurse practitioner and she looked Perry over. I thought maybe she had an ear infection or something that we couldn't, she wasn't fevering, but she wasn't herself. And we thought, let's just go rule out something that, we're missing. And when we brought her in, they looked her over, tested her for all the things, COVID, strep, flu, and everything came back negative. And so it was kind of one of those wait and see, viral infection, let it run its course, bring her back if she's, not feeling like herself. And so 10 days go by and she's still not feeling like herself. She's wanting to be held, which is not like her. We've always called her our feral child because she's usually on the run, and so it was really unlike her to be super tired and cranky and uncomfortable and just sad. And so we ended up bringing her back a second time. That time it was a Saturday, so we ended up bringing her into our urgent care that's right beside our pediatrician through Cook. And again, they tested her for COVID, strep, the flu, looked her over, and everything came back negative. And so it was just, again, like it's the middle of cold and flu season at this point. It was right after Christmas. And so everything was kind of looking like everything at the time. And she wasn't fevering, but she did have all these other symptoms that day. And so we just kind of left feeling like, okay, well, at least we, brought her in. They said she was good to go. Like, we don't really know what's going on, but if it persists, like, we'll just, I guess, bring her back again. And so 2 more weeks passed by, and at that point Perry had started to show some signs of real illness, real sickness. We knew in our hearts that she was unwell and that she hadn't gotten better over the course of, the month leading up to this kind of moment where we said we feel like something's terribly wrong, because she has just not been able to kick whatever this is. And so we noticed that her skin started to look a little pale, almost jaundice like, and she had these little bruises on her cheeks that wouldn't go away. I asked my husband if he was pinching her cheeks too hard. I'm like, why does she have these little bruises on her face? Like, where did that come from? And we just couldn't figure it out. And so I had an overwhelming sense of like, take her in and just ask them to do blood work. Like, that's the one thing that we haven't done. And at this point, she hadn't seen her actual pediatrician, who has seen her since birth and knows her temperaments, knows her personality, knows what she looks like on a good day versus when she's sick. And so when I brought her in that very next day to see her pediatrician, her doctor took one look at her and said, I agree. I'm glad you brought her in. I think she's definitely anemic-ish. We're going to do blood work right away. And this was at 9:30 in the morning. And by 1:30 p.m. that day, my husband's phone rang and they said, we need you to take Perry down to the hospital. We've already let them know you're coming. And when we got there, we were escorted straight past the waiting room, which we thought, okay, now they're just like, this mom, she's, we got to do all the things and run all the tests and give her some peace of mind because she just keeps bringing her kid back to the doctor, convinced something's wrong. And sure enough, it wasn't long after we arrived that we were greeted by a team of doctors and brought to a consultation room and told that our daughter had cancer and that they were pretty certain it was leukemia, but it would take some time and some more tests to figure out exactly what kind, and that they were going to be working really quickly to get us a diagnosis and get the ball rolling with her treatment. That happened very quickly.
So, Dr. Bowman, how does Leukemia Texas uniquely support families like Ashley's and patients compared to other organizations?
The mission of Leukemia Texas is helping Texans beat leukemia through patient aid, research, and innovation. And I think what makes it stand out as unique is its focus entirely on the diagnosis of leukemia across all age groups, and that Leukemia Texas provides direct financial aid to patients with leukemia and their families if they are eligible based upon a confirmed diagnosis and residency in the state of Texas.
So, Ashley, how did you first connect with Leukemia Texas and what kind of support did they provide?
So I actually connected with Leukemia Texas originally through a fellow cancer mom. A mutual friend of mine, her daughter had actually just rang her bell to wrap up the same leukemia treatment 5 days prior to Perry's diagnosis. And she was able to share with me a list of resources and organizations that had supported their family along the way and have really blessed them in the fight against cancer. And so she kind of shared with me that Leukemia Texas had provided some assistance to them and really made an impact on their journey. And so shortly after, we kind of got got under our feet and got our new normal figured out after Perry's initial diagnosis. When things started to settle down, I sort of made it my part-time job to start applying for things and seeing what type of support and assistance and connections we could make, because it felt like a very long road and we weren't sure how we were going to make it through without being surrounded by people and organizations that understood the fight. And the thing about leukemia treatment, especially for these kiddos, is it's long. And when they sit you down, tell you that your child is going to endure 2.5 years of chemotherapy, it's just overwhelming and to receive that news, and it feels like an unbearable amount of time. However, Leukemia Texas has provided us with ongoing support and connection. They have surrounded us with love. They provided a buddy bag to Perry in the hospital that brought her so much comfort and joy. They sent us a check through their patient aid program that had allowed us to focus on Perry and her care and not worry about expenses, because the reality is that even though your child gets diagnosed with cancer, the rest of life stresses and things don't stop. And so it was really kind of like, oh, when it rains, it pours type of thing for us. Our family was dealing with some um, unplanned home renovations that we had to do at the same time as her diagnosis. And you still need new tires and you still have childcare bills for your other kids. And there's just, there's no stopping the stresses of life just because you're adding cancer into the mix. And so Leukemia Texas really provided us with a very generous gift to get to relieve some of that financial stress.
So, Dr. Bowman, how do you ensure that patients and families' voices are heard at board meetings and through the board?
We have a 9-member board of directors, uh, all volunteers, and one board member is a parent of a child with leukemia. And actually, it was through that particular child that my wife and I first became, and others at Cook actually first became connected to Leukemia Texas because of that child and family being a patient aid recipient way back in 2007. So the board member serves because of his experience and perspective, and his child, who was diagnosed at 12, has grown up and is now a productive, healthy 30-year-old young man. In addition, the board of directors is very much involved with oversight and communication, and meets once a month along with our executive director, Sharon McGowan. And at those meetings, the board has an opportunity to hear confidentially and with privacy maintained patient stories. And stories are what inspire people to want to step up. And so each month we have a very concise but meaningful and sometimes heartrending presentation of the challenges that patients and families experience by virtue of encountering leukemia, whether they are little kids, teenagers, adults, or senior citizens. They're very, very eye-opening experiences, even to me, who cared for kids with leukemia for 40 plus years. So, thanks to the storytelling, I think it keeps the board very, very much engaged and wanting to do the very best they can to grow the opportunities for more patient benefits and secure research funding opportunities and pursue our mission.
So, Ashley, Dr. Bowman started our podcast talking about how kind of hope is the through line through the mission of this organization and what they're doing. How do you find that hope and strength during the difficult times? And how does it shape where your family's at today?
I think being on the receiving end of so many other people's just kindness and generosity and care has really uh, impacted our family. Seeing Perry's resilience, seeing her courage and bravery has really just given our family such a different perspective on life. And there are lots of hard days, but there are good days too. And being able to just celebrate every little victory and every little win along the way has really helped us to stay stay strong in the fight and just keep going. And just we're constantly reminded that we're not alone in this, and that has truly blessed us and made such a difference along the way.
Is there any other upcoming event that you want to, or maybe initiative you want to share with our team about?
I would like to say that in the current year, our year being a summer to summer fiscal year from July to June, and with the leadership that we have on board now, with Sharon McGowan as our executive director, we are striving to enhance community awareness in the DFW area and across Texas through presentations that we may solicit or invitations and other relationship building activities which are on the drawing board and which we hope will give us an opportunity to reach more people. We want to grow our funding opportunities through grant applications and already have had some successes in that area. Applications to local and statewide philanthropic organizations and foundations. And we also are working even more than ever before to strengthen relationships with healthcare professionals uh, who care for people with leukemia, hospital systems treating children and adults with leukemia, um, because there's much work to be done. There are approximately 5,000 new cases of leukemia in the state of Texas every year. And of course, we can't by any means touch all of them, but we're going to do our best to touch as many as possible.
So, Ashley, what would you say to parents who are getting this difficult news? 5,000 people are hearing this a year. Well, what words would you have for them?
I would say that if you're just starting out on this journey, it's okay to feel scared and overwhelmed. I think the fear that we felt and the worry in the beginning um, has allowed us to really be so grateful and thankful for every little victory since that initial diagnosis. And I'm just super thankful for the doctors that have done the work, like Dr. Bowman, to allow our children to have such a good prognosis. So I think it's just clinging to that hope and just believing even when hiccups occur, because they will, and even during the unplanned admissions and the fever trips to the ER in the middle of the night. I mean, there are so many hard things about this journey. However, the perspective that we've been given about just the fragility of life and how grateful we are for the treatment that exists and the prognosis that Perry have. Just clinging to that hope and knowing that one day we will be on the other side of it, and just kind of continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And we dream about her bell ringing day all the time and can't wait to celebrate that, and her taking her last chemo and all of it. But it's just the road feels long, but one day at a time, and you will make it through. Not on your own strength, but you'll be surrounded by people and families and organizations like Leukemia Texas that understand it. And it feels isolating at first, but you start to realize that 5,000 people getting diagnosed with leukemia in the state of Texas is not uncommon. There are people who understand, who will rally around you, and you will not feel alone.
So, you touched on something really wonderful there. I think human nature is we're sometimes inclined to not ask others for help. What words of encouragement would you give about seeking the help that you think people really will need as they begin their journey, or if they're in the journey and maybe they haven't asked for that help before?
So I think it's important to note that it takes a lot of humility and courage to receive help. And as someone who has spent the majority of my life being on the giver end of wanting other people to feel seen and cared for, and the first to sign up for somebody's meal train or offer to help in whatever capacity, big or small, that I can. I think being on the receiving end of other people's kindness and generosity has spurred our family on to want to continue to share our story and Perry's cancer story, and show other people that you don't have to feel alone, that there are so many people that want to help. And it has given us just such purpose in our pain to want to be able to be at the Leukemia Texas ball, as well as donors one day and not recipients, because of the way our family was impacted on this journey. It's made such a difference to us that we know that it's something that we want to be a part of for the rest of our life, because it impacted us that way. So being able to receive that help has spurred us on to want to make a difference for the families that are going to come behind us.
So, Dr. Bowman, how could we get more involved if we wanted to be more involved with Leukemia Texas?
Well, I would urge the viewers and listeners to learn more. And you could start by looking at our very informative website, leukemiatexas.org, one word, leukemiatexas.org. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where there's something new pretty much every day to inspire. People could consider a donation. None is too small, none is too large. These could be done with a one-time contribution by some specific opportunities that are indicated on the website, and in particular, our new monthly program called Partners in Hope. One may inquire about opportunities to volunteer, to join a planning committee. We're always seeking new faces, new minds, new hearts to work with us. For one who thinks they might want to pursue a major commitment, to inquire about the commitment of board membership. We are, at this point, one of our initiatives is to try to grow our board of directors with broader representation, not only across North Texas, but beyond, if possible, as well. You may send an email to info@leukemiatexas.org, and I guarantee you'll get a personal reply very quickly. And if you want to be further inspired by the story of Ashley's wonderful little girl, Perry, you can actually look at a lovely video that's available on our website. Cook Children's was very generous in producing a video in which Ashley and her family generously shared the wonders of their little girl, and how together they are overcoming her battle against leukemia with such courage and inspiration.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining me today to talk about this incredibly important mission, and Ashley for sharing such a personal topic. I think that's beyond beautiful, and know that you're inspiring and you're already starting to be a giver, even though you may not feel like it. Dr. Bowman, thank you for your knowledge and your input and your generosity for leading the board through this Beat Leukemia Ball and through today's podcast. So for those listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or listen right on our website at whitleypenn.com/podcast. Thank you again to everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.